Zimbabwe, Your Wounds Will Be Named Silence by Robin Hammond. 152 photographs, 151 pages. It measures just over 11.5 by 9. It's hardback. It's a really nicely put together book. It's good quality. It was published in 2013 by Actes Sud, and it was funded, I'm under the impression it was funded by the Carmignac Gestion Photojournalism Prize, which Robin received for his work in Zimbabwe. It's a beautiful book, and I really do like this book. It was a very brave effort to do this book. I think Robin ended up in prison twice, putting himself through the process of shooting it. And I think he was based in South Africa at the time when he was doing it. I might be wrong, but nevertheless, he wanted to show Zimbabwe as it was, the aftermath, through the people, through the land, through the infrastructure, through just the desolation and the grief and the turmoil Mugabe's regime had put upon the land and put upon the people. And there's a few different narratives within the book, and we'll get there. We'll have a look through it, and we'll just open up. So it's in French and in English. And it was, I think, let me just go back here. It was part of an exhibition as well. I've just caught a paragraph there. It was part of the Exposition of Photographs Laureate, a 2011 prize for the Carmignac Gestion of Photojournalism, 9th of November, the 9th of December 2012, at the Chapelle de l'École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. My French is not great, so I apologise. So yeah, the text is split between French and English, and there's a lot of sort of narratives in here. There's a lot of different things going on, and I'm going to sort of touch on the stuff. I don't think I'll do it justice. I think it's it just shows a photographer trying to tell a story, trying to show the West, trying to show everybody what he's capable of, but what is happening to other people. And I think he's since he's done this, he's had quite an association, I think, mentally and spiritually, and his awareness with Zimbabwe. And I think he has a lot of sort of heartfelt memories there, and a lot of things he'll never forget. And he's made a lot of friends. What I'm reading into the book, there's text here. So the dark text here is in French, and the light text underneath it is in English. Could do with that text being a little lighter. As you're getting older, my eyes are getting a little bit more strained. And this is a really shiny book as well. And when we get to the later stages of the book, there's a series of portraits, like in a black box effect. And I think it was just isolation. I think that's what he wanted to create, that sense of isolation. And I'll get to that. But why I mentioned it was because trying to do it on this rostrum, the shine of the lights is incredible. So I will try my best to help you see it and talk about it and give you an idea to some degree what it's about. And I'll try and read some of the text as it comes up. And I think this is a storage commission in Balawan. I think that's how you pronounce it. So great map of the world, globe of the world. And Robin's obviously very into how human suffering unfolds, and he's very interested in how human suffering survives as well, and where at different stages. And I know of his work he's doing now, he's really interested in how, as humans, we are different, and how we face a sort of trials and tribulations and oppression. So his work's beautifully put together. His use of light is spot on. His composition is spot on. I was very familiar with Robin's earlier work, and he had a good eye. He was very constructive, and he was always wanting to tell a story. Even when he was working in England, in the north of England, he always wanted to tell a story, and I could see in the way he was doing his post-production of his work at the time that he was trying to develop narrative. And now I think because he's a sole trader and he's doing it himself, and he's got nobody else to sort of work alongside in a sense in terms of, or telling him what to do. He just gets out and tells his journey, and he's got a really good eye, and I want to pick up on a few things, especially with this. I think his series of pictures are looking at the trains and the old railway system, and how things have ground to a halt in certain areas, and how things have been abandoned in factories and stuff like that. So yeah, you know, simple as shot. It just says a lot with a tree. How long has the tree been grown in the train line? It's, you know, simple stuff. You could juxtapose it with that composition there of the lady, and I think this is an old farm which is now derelict and abandoned, and the use of the centre focal area in the thirds, which has got to a great structure here. So I'll just show the right side. You will be able to see some of the left side, and I don't want to give you all of the book. You can look on Robin's website and you can see most of the images. You can look on other websites and you'll see that they're skimming through the books. I think that's fine, and because I'm putting my personal note to it, all off the cuff, just as it goes, and I may not always be right, but I just wanted to show you a bit of it, because I think something like this needs supporting. Get out and buy it. You can still buy it. It's about 30 quid, £35. It's well worth having. A piece of history, some good classic photojournalism, and this is a guy with HIV who I think died a few hours after this shot. It's it's obviously low light. There's a lot of depth of field there in terms of open depth of field, and it's beautiful. You know, it's sort of that moments before death, and it's something which is not easy to do, you know, and I think Robin's gentle in his approach here, and he's you can see throughout this he's got there's something about his imagery with people that he really tries to associate himself when he's taking a picture and giving them a lot of dignity and a lot of positivity, and I think in this book as well, you know, the landscape, he's added certain stuff to it which has given it a positive vibe, even a positive construction in the way he's done it, because I think it's shown the desolation, the beauty of the desolation in a sense, and that's quite a contradiction in a sense, but I think it's nice. I think is it a romanticism? Is it? I'm not really sure. But what he's trying to do, he's trying to create beautiful pictures to depict terrible things happening to people and their surroundings, and this is a person who's trying to wash himself, I presume, who's suffering with HIV. This looks like a power supply from an old paper mill, I think, judging by the top layer of the French. Nice again, simple composition, using the red to bring you in, and lots of shapes in there with rectangles and squares and stuff. And it took some bottle to do this, you know, and like I said, I think he was put in prison a few times, which must have been quite an ordeal. I had actually no idea he was in prison until a few years later when I picked up on a news article, and I was like, wow, I didn't realise. And this has no title, it's just got Harare. Again, living conditions, nice centre focus, great exposure. There's something about the pictures in this book, and there's like a chunkiness to the blacks, and it really reminds me of old E6. I doubt it's shot on E6. I doubt he had the carry-on bags to shoot on E6. I presume it's all digital. I don't know what he's doing or how he's shooting it to get that real chunkiness in post-production, but there's a real sort of a lovely old, I don't know if it's Ektachrome or a Prevere feel to it, where there's that old E6. All the old school boys and girls will know what I'm talking about in terms of E6. But anyway, it's beautiful. I'm going to see if I can bring this down a little bit, just to give it time to focus. Okay, so this is in Bilingual. I probably got that wrong. So what he's drawing a picture. He's in his centre focusing again. He's giving you the landscape. He's giving you the barrenness of the industry and the landscape and what's left of it. And he's slowly introducing people into it in different ways. On the left side, there are people shots, and he's sort of using a lot of that landscape. He likes his squares, Robin, and he likes that rectangle and square, and it's sort of making you sort of stop into the picture. On the other side, there's a picture of a white farmer. I'm not really sure the story, but she's holding her hands in her eyes, and obviously in despair, and we know the eviction process, what was going on with the farmers. I don't know too much about the story of that. This is, I think, a farm worker collecting the belongings, or their belongings. Some farm workers, I presume. Nice, sort of squared off again, a lovely backdrop. It's definitely a lovely, I know that lovely chunkiness I'm talking about. I know that working in this part of the world, I've worked on that hemisphere where he's at, and it is quite contrasty, the light. And I remember working in Ethiopia, down in Somalia, and that light is sort of on black and white. I was shooting 400 ISO, and the light was very chunky on the blacks, and so that might be partially why there's that lovely chunkiness to it. But I think it's lovely. I think it's almost like a painting, you know. It's beautiful. So we're bringing back the people more now. We're looking at now at the barrenscape, the barren land. Got a storm brewing there. And this stuff looks easy, you know. It takes a bit of time to get this, and I'm sure the stuff was fleeting moments where he's wandering and getting out to places. But this stuff doesn't just happen, you know. It takes a focus, it takes an angle, it takes perseverance, and it takes a mission to develop the narrative of this. And it's something which he is obviously looking at and reflecting on, and he's got a narrative in his head, and he's just working at it and working at it and working at it till he gets it. And he is focusing on, obviously, people who are poor, the farm workers and stuff, but he's focusing on people now who have HIV and AIDS, and I presume this is just a farm worker's daughter in on a sort of abandoned farm, I presume. Now, there's an interesting next sequence. I personally think the next sequence is the weakest part of the book, but because at the minute I might not get it that much. But then again, it's really strong. But in terms of design, I like this format. I like this leading you along to tell a story. And I'm going to show you what I can of it. But what it seems to be, and I'm guessing, and I can't see any text to it, it's like he's sitting in a car and he's on a journey. He's found himself moving around. He's passing, the world's passing him by. And I think this is a sort of, as it starts with the shot, an opening shot here of the sort of road into the distance and a guy on a wheelchair. And I think because the emphasis is on the road, this whole pull-out section starts focusing on a sort of reportage style travel of night and day, of things he's seeing out the car window. And you see it here, and it moves on to the next page, and this is a sort of collage of different aspects of the roadside activities. And I get it. I think, for me, whether it needed it or not, I'm not really sure. I think it's an interesting concept to it, but I think it probably was part of something else in the exhibition. I guess, and I haven't seen the exhibition, I'd like to have seen it. So I guess this whole montage of different stuff may have factored into the exhibition, and they just wanted to illustrate it. I don't think the book needs it. I think the pictures, what he's got in here, stand alone as itself. And I'm just wondering if just a shot of that in itself, after the road and stuff in it, and a couple of other shots would have sufficed, you know, like we've got the guys up here, and that looks like a really strong shot. I love this. I think that's great. And I just wondered if it needed it. This is the finish of that sequence, and it's the road leading off again with somebody else there and somebody down there, like people, you know, when it's that classic scene of people moving around with the market supplies on the head, or their daily food. Now, I can't read this, but I have an idea that off the text that it's a slant towards Mugabe, and it's some graffiti, and that was a sort of statement to bring into the next section. I think a lot of the next stuff features around Harare. So we've got some rallies here. I'm going to move to that because I love this shot. I think it's a better shot than that shot. I love that shot. It's fantastic. It's that lovely layering of different elements going on, and that it's really good. Really nicely seeing that shot. And I think there's little shots like that which show the skill of a photographer who's looking for extra stuff. He knows what he wants. He knows he's trying to make three-dimensional pictures to tell a story of one thing, essentially. So we've got like what looks like a rally, probably a president. It must be a Mugabe thing. And then we've got going back into the outskirts on the left here, where you've got a rubbish dump with the kids, that's it there. It's really nice. And then you've got I think these are the families, maybe they're on the outskirts. And I'm just having a look at this is Bulawayo River, and they're just obviously maybe migrants or migrant workers, or they're in transit or something like that, but they're obviously very poor. And it's interesting to get the trust, you know. What makes this book interesting for me, and what I first saw in it, was that there was some pose pictures, but as a real sort of credit to Robin, that there's not really any of him in it. And I mean that there doesn't feel like there's much interference from the photographer. It's classic old photojournalism, this, you know. He's getting stuff which, like this, obviously goes against what I've just said. There's a feel that he is belonging in the picture with his subject, that he's controlling them to a certain point. But there's a lot of pictures, especially like the old man dying, which is a picture to get right, the responsibility of getting that shot right and getting it beautiful, even though there's a man dying there. There's nothing Robin can do but only do his job to depict the scene, to show the state of healthcare, to show where a person is in his dying days. And there's a responsibility to get that absolutely spot on, do that dying man justice, that his little legacy there of that image will move on and will make people reflect on it and remember that man as a sort of figurehead and a sort of symbol of where his life was at, but where the state of this country is in, you know. So I think that's probably somebody's makeshift home. It's a really nice shot. It looks like it's a graveyard. That's beautiful, absolutely stunning. Church. And I think it says here, the churches became very popular as the country's economy has declined and unemployment has risen. I think people are seeking sanctuary, and such good picture taking this. It's very clever. I love the symbolism of the light and what it means. And you can see it's a tricky shot to get, and in that dead light, that sort of low light and the skin tone, to get like a black skin's quite tricky under low light. I think it's about 2 stops difference to a white skin. I might be wrong. Just to burn out on that and get that to symbolise that feeling of a sort of religious moment, it's absolutely spot on. I think these people, okay, it's a household of 9 AIDS orphans. It's not an easy thing to put yourself into, that. And I've worked around AIDS myself in Africa. It's a very heartfelt thing, and people say to you, you know, could you help them? Could you rescue them? I think he is helping them. I think he is doing them. And you've got to stay separate to it. You can get involved emotionally to a point, but you can't. You can show empathy, but you can't take anything away but what you're there to do. And that's why what I like about stuff like this is that it's not just a photography book. There's a responsibility to do it correctly, and Robin's done that spot on. And I just think it offers a beautiful insight into a troubled country and troubled people, and we can only have empathy for these people. It's a great shot. The exposures are spot on with, and I'm just trying to work out with a low light to see if there's any slowness in there or any blur in there, but I don't seem to see anything. Looks like, you know, classic gold mine shot. It reminds me of the Salgado Brazilian mines, but again, it's like the gold mines and just getting out there. It's an illegal mine as well, you know, getting the trust of the people. But actually, getting that shot in that contrast and that light's taken some doing as well. Really good. I love this. I'm going to move over on this because I love this shot, and I love his layers. He's got his foreground, and then he's got the midground, and then the background. Well, the background with the sky as well, but he's got the different layers, and I like that about photographers who can think about the 3-layer aspect and the third. So he's got the composition down, and he's a good master of composition. He's a good master of light as well, Robin, you know, and he sort of gets it right. He really thinks about light and how it affects the final image and how people are going to perceive it based around the composition of light, because that's the key. Again, use of light. There's quite a powerful picture on the left here, but get out and buy this book, man. Support him. Looks like an old beer hall, it says. I can see the French, but I can't see the English as well. This light's quite very glary. There's a beautiful shot. I'm going to move. It's gorgeous, isn't it? I think it's HIV, or she is HIV, being washed by family. Stunning. Let's go see if I can bring this down a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Get a look. It's fantastic. Again, use of composition, use of thirds. That format, it's quite, I've seen this, and there's a sort of, he's going back to that format a lot. That square, rectangle, bomb in the middle. There's nothing wrong with that. It's strong. Use of light, I presume it's a storm brewing up and these exposures exposed for that. The light must have been pretty full on, and there's no major burnout here on anything, but the golden hour, I guess, you know. This is Harare. This is great. I'm going to the left again. I promised I wouldn't, but what the heck? It's so good. Look at the narrative in the picture. It's asking questions. You know, you maybe a shot that would have been powerful, but the fact that you've got the left eye looking there and you can move yourself on, you're going to end up back here. Even though itself, if you look at that, that's quite a beautifully powerful picture. And like, you know, it looks like the old sniper picture from Vietnam. I'll go here again. There is a shot which is coming up, which I got confused about at first, but I want to just briefly talk about it. And this is a great shot. Pool hall, good exposure, and I'd love to know what ISO is using. It's really pure and clean. It doesn't look like anything. I wonder if he's tripoding that or just he's not breathing. The shot you see is a bit of blur, but it's fantastic. This shot. It's interesting. I guess this is a facility where people are staying. It's like it could be a block of flats, or they're displaced people. And there's a bit of the text there which talks about the sort of violence and stuff like that. And as you can see, there's a corridor with a man's figure there holding something. And it looks like a machete. I'm not sure if it is, or a baseball bat or something. And then you've got this woman here, and really clever shot. Now, I doubt it was posed, but if he's caught that as it happens, then hats off to him. It's superb. Again, it looks like something from sort of Eastern Europe, doesn't it? It looks like an old Russian car there. Could be anywhere sort of like Eastern Europe. It's fantastic. Again, using the frame, light, natural light, trying to develop a story, a narrative within the picture. Use of thirds, brilliantly executed. Nice rectangle and square in the middle. Keeps you focused, keeps you there. Squares again, and it's a really good depiction. Really good use of light, good use of manipulation. It's a nice shot. There's an even better shot on the other side, but I'm not going to show you. I think you should get out and buy this. 76-year-old. That's on his 22-year-old granddaughter to take care of him. Just bedridden 76-year-old. Wow. This looks, and I think, is an old concentration camp, and it's a beautiful shot. I'm going to bring it down. It's that night shot. Fantastic. Now I'm moving into a series of different portraits, and I do love these. I'm actually inspired to go and give this a shot myself on something, because I've seen he did something else for The Guardian which used this sort of black box. It's a lovely effect. He may have done it in Nigeria under his Nigerian book as well. I may be wrong. It's a lovely technique. Now, as you can see, the camera's going all over the place because the picture, there's the shine of the light on the black, and then trying to find this face is quite tricky. So I'm just leaving it rolling a minute, and I'm going to see if I can focus up on it. I think I've got it. So you're going to have to put up, I'll see if I can get some of them. So there's a whole series of shots here, You're going to have to put up with the reflections, I'm sorry. And I'm going to do my best. So we've got to just give the camera time. A right tricky little aspect to get right. And I'll just sort of blockhead some of the light here. And I can get it. In fact, see if I can lift it up a little bit. And see if we can take it from there. There you go. Absolutely stunning. Beautiful. So there's, like I said, there's a whole series of stuff on here like this. And that's the faces. It's such a good idea, and I'd love to have seen this. I wonder if this was these were really big in the exhibition. You can see my lights all over it, and that is just gorgeous. Actually, it's quite nice with the backlight. It's almost theatrical, doesn't it? I presume, and you can argue this. I want people to talk about this on the feed, and I presume that this sort of is representative of people being isolated and feeling alone and emotional and forgotten, in a sense. Judging by the way it's shot, the simplicity of the way it's shot, I would presume that may be the case. It's almost like theatre, isn't it? It's a really nice take on it. I wonder what the inspiration was for that. I might look back historically and see if I can find somebody else doing it. And it's just really poignant. And I think it's an interesting end to it. And like the narrative of the bus journey and the car journey and the people on the side of the road, it offers another perspective to the way he's looking at it. And this takes time. How he did it, he may have done it at every place he went to, or he may have applied as he was going along and collecting them, or he may have got them into a studio or something like that. Who knows? It doesn't really matter. But he's offered a sort of another perspective and another narrative, and it adds dimension to it, and it would look great on the exhibition wall. And he's not been lazy about this, you know. He's really trying to sort of depict that here and now. This is who we are. This is what we are. This is what we've become, and this is the result of the oppression and turmoil and the brutality and the lack of healthcare and the lack of infrastructure, the lack of industry, the lack of money. And I think it's a nice and beautiful observation. There's the back bit here is all about it's maps and stuff, as you can see, and it's all very bright by the looks of my screen. And a little bit of history in French and English, like violence and repression. Here's the actual English here. Colonial rule, independence, and then the 90s discontent grows and economic collapse, and then power sharing agreement, the bibliography. So there's text here which is about Robin, about him going into a block of flats and whether it was dangerous, and his driver was telling him that it was a bit dodgy to get out. And I think it says on the morning of 8 February 2012, Paul Chizuzu, a human rights activist in Zimbabwe, he went missing, and I think there's a little bit of an insight into that. And I presume these texts here are when Robin got detained. There's a whole series of text conversations, and without, it says criminal nuisance. Yeah, I think this is Robin being fined or something for being a criminal nuisance. So it's really interesting insight. That's a whole series. I'm going to look at these in a little bit more detail. I think you should. Is just acknowledgements and the end bits there, and here's the back cover. Yeah, I love it. Well done, Robin. Really nice book, mate. And get out and buy this. Get out and support it. I think it's a piece of history. Now Mugabe's dead. It might be an interesting concept, and I'm sure Robin's got it in his head somewhere. He needs to go back and do another book in a new Zimbabwe, and I think that would be a nice little sequel to this. And I know he's done other stuff in Zimbabwe, and maybe he is working on it now. But yeah, love the book. Get out and buy it. Get out and support Robin's work. Check on the internet. I'll put his link for his website in the information section. You can get this book from Robin. You can buy it on the usual outlets on the internet. It's worth the money. Get out and support him. Cheers, Robin. Thank you.